Hello, beloved.
Welcome to the Sacred Sister podcast,
where we normalize the magic and sacralize the mundane.
In this podcast, we open up dialogue on metaphysical subjects, self-healing tools, expanding consciousness, and deepening awareness.
We're here to support you in co-creating a life full of healing, meaning, and magic.
If you're brand new here, welcome and hello. We're so excited to have you here.
If you want to know more what has come before, Season 1 is great for foundation of spiritual practices. Season 2 is focusing on relationships. Season 3 is featuring conscious entrepreneurs who are spearheading their sacred mission.
And now we are in Season 4, where we're bringing fresh perspective to outdated systems and creating sustainable foundations for the new earth that's birthing. Since it's the season of the Emperor, we're going to be mostly focusing on male voices this season.
And the lineup of the season is fire, so make sure to subscribe if you're not already.
I'm your host, Britt, certified self-inquiry and alignment-based smart flow yoga instructor, self-healing song channel, and personal transformation coach, guiding women to gain radical self-awareness in order to reconnect with their most expressive and vibrant self.
And I'm your host, Hannah, a certified astrologer, ordained priestess, and rebirth coach. And I help women integrate past life and ancestral traumas to give birth to their higher self and manifest their wildest dreams into reality.
We're really grateful that you're here.
And together,
we're here to serve as your
Sacred Sister.
Let's dive in. Hello, beautiful. Welcome to episode 1 of season 4 of Sacred Sister Podcast. Are you ready for season 4? My name's Britt. I haven't sat down to record an intro in like 2 months, and it feels so good to be back here. I'm so excited to open up this first episode of season 4, and oh my holy goodness, is it a doozy. Editing Brittany here. I'm interrupting my own intro to tell you guys something really exciting. Before I get into what Ed's episode is going to be about and who this incredible guest is, I want to let y'all know that drum roll. I am announcing that Sacred Sister Podcast has officially started a Patreon page. Yes. So what does that mean? That means for everyone that likes us, for everyone that wants to support us, and for people that just want to tune into added extra content and lots of other stuff, but at this time we only have added video content. You can support us. You can go search Sacred Sister Podcast on Patreon. It's $5 a month, and right now what we have is video commentary on every episode of season 4. So that means as new episodes roll out, so will updated video content where Hannah and I sit down right after the interview that we have with our guests, and we just talk shop. We talk about what sort of insights came up for us that we weren't able to share about the episode. We share personal experiences, personal stories, ask each other questions. All of it's on video, and we can't wait to sit down with you in this deeper sort of format. We share stories that maybe we wouldn't want to share on the air. So it's more of a close-knit circle, more of an intimate group sort of sharing experience where we want to be knowing about what's going on in your lives as well. And just so you know, we do have planned in the future to be offering more than just the video commentary episodes. We want to add giveaways and little worksheets and little workshops that you can do, ebooks, little e-courses, guided meditation audio downloads. We want to offer little pins and stickers. So if you have ideas that you want to also see on our Patreon page, we really want to know about it. We really thank you for all of your support. We thank you for every single listen, for every single share that you've shared with people that you know would resonate with the episodes. Dude, Sacred Sister Podcast just passed 19,000 downloads a couple days ago. It is so exciting to know how fast this podcast is growing, and we're here for it. We're celebrating it right along with all of you. Thank you so much for supporting us, and let's hop into 4.1 interview with Edward Zaydelman. So today we're sitting down with Edward Zaydelman. He's the creator of the Cell Method Daily Journal, an integrative journaling experience that helps you navigate wisdom. He teaches workshops on this integrative journaling, and we talk about it a little later in the episode. He also helps to run and operate Vida, which is a premier transformational retreat center in Costa Rica. And he's the founder of Live the Possibility, building a bridge for people to live their dream life. And we'll talk more about what that is here in a minute. So Ed has been producing events and retreats for the last 18 years. He grew up in New York City and was organizing everything from 7,000 person gatherings to boutique events for celebrities at top venues. But after some years in the fast-paced event industry, he realized that a shift was needed and turned to creating conscious gatherings. Over the years, Ed has consulted with international hotel brands, developing his own retreat center, Vida, in Costa Rica, producing unique events around the globe, and working with top thought leaders in the personal growth and wellness space. Impacting people's lives in a positive way through experiential education and hospitality is truly Ed's passion. And through Ed's most recent launch, Live the Possibility, a bridge is being built for people to live their dream life, offering tiny homes and regenerative real estate opportunities in areas that are both abundant and thriving. We also get into in this episode how much Hannah and I are feeling our own families, beginning to question and experiment with the ideas of living in tiny homes ourselves and possibly moving out of the country into eco-villages and living a lifestyle that's more integrated with nature, and honestly feeling our spirits calling for that in this time. In this episode, we're excited to dive into the following topics and so much more because I can't put everything in the intro. We talk about what it even means to live alternatively. We talk about moving from a fast-paced do mode to a more slow and connected be mode. The importance of integration before manifestation. We talk about techniques of shadow work and facing our fears. We talk about mundane steps and tips to go about making the shift. We talk about the number one biggest mistake to not make when moving to alternative living and how to create the life of your dreams. I'm so excited to dive into Hannah's astrology segment on Ed and then jump into the interview with Ed. But first, I want to spend a few minutes looking into a few of Edward's human design chart aspects, the human design type and the incarnation cross. So this is going to be a new segment for season 4, and I'm really excited to start diving into human design aspects for our guests. So for those that haven't heard of human design, it's a self-knowledge system that helps us make decisions as we navigate through life. It helps us to reclaim our authority within and to decondition or release or let go of that which we are not. The moment that we begin to align with our own nature, the moment that we allow our body to live its life without resistance, we begin the deep process of reconditioning. So, let's dive in. Ed plays the projector role in society. Projectors are the guides, who are about 20% of the population. Their strategy for engaging with life is to wait for their specific qualities to be recognized and be invited into things. It's through an invitation that they experience recognition and success in their lives. The projector's fit to the world is to understand and to be a guide for others. So now let's look into the incarnation cross so that we can have a deeper platform to feel into the energetic outlook that our guest's higher self is excited to experience in this life. It becomes obvious when looking into this aspect of our guests' human design charts that our guests are exactly where they need to be in terms of how they're offering service to their communities. So the incarnation cross is depicted by our birth information, date, time, and location of our birth. So what is it? It's the path or storyline that you're designed to live out during your life. It's not some inevitable fate, and you can choose to not live that path, right? All of us have free will. But most of the time, we can't help but express our cross, at least partially, because it's what comes naturally to us. So your incarnation cross can be thought of as your broad purpose in life, made a little more specific by your particular type and profile, and further refined by the rest of the gate energies that you carry. Okay, so the way this is broken down is that there are 4 quarters that our spirits choose to feel into in order to fulfill experiences of purpose in this life. So Ed's incarnation cross resides within the quarter of civilization, where purpose is fulfilled through form. He has a deep connection with Gate 31, in which there's a theme of influence, and the cross is called the left angle cross of the Alpha. And what it looks like is powerful leaders who impact others by resolving issues of survival on the mental plane. They're people who are looked to for practical solutions that secure the future. And all of that is going to be so clearly depicted by the time you get to the end of this episode. Ed is fulfilling his purpose in this life, doing exactly what he's doing right now. Whether you're interested in staying with them, living with them, or building with them, Ed is a figure that people can look to when they want to procure practical living solutions that help them secure an eco-integrated future. I'm so excited. Like, Curtis and I are going to be looking into livethepossibility.co just for our own selves and what we envision for ourselves for the future. You can go there and stay in one of their homes for a night or a week or longer in order to get a true taste of this nature integrated lifestyle. You can buy a home and have it assembled, installed, and delivered to your property within 2 months' time at really, really affordable prices. Or if you're looking to actually purchase the land, they can help you with that too, with extensive experience in international real estate. Whether you're looking to buy your own property, land in an eco-village, or land to build your own regenerative community or retreat center, they help you avoid costly mistakes. Let's dive into Hannah's astrology segment, and I hope that you enjoy.
Hello, sacred beings. This is your host, Hannah, and we are here in the Inner Blueprint section for Ed Zaydelman. And I am so excited to dive into his inner blueprint because it just shows so much about his personality. And I love looking at the charts of each of our guests and then give you the opportunity to notice certain energies within the interview that you're listening to and realize how he is expressing those archetypes within himself. So Ed is an Aquarius sun in the 11th house, and I think that is just such a testament to what he is doing. And we're literally talking about keys to alternative living, and he literally has his sun in Aquarius in the house of Aquarius, so double Aquarius there. And it's all about alternative living, modern living, looking into the future, innovations, conscious community, and connecting with that higher self, connecting with that future that we want to create into this world from that collective consciousness. And that's what he's doing with his work. And it's so beautiful how he is fully expressing his Aquarius sun. Aquarius is also not afraid to be different and loves friends and communities, but also has this part of a rebel within. And it's important for Aquarius to be allowed to feel free to be himself without feeling restricted. Then Ed's moon is in Aries in the 1st house, and it's actually intercepted in Aries, which means that in order for him to really feel nurtured in his Aries moon, he has to first go through Pisces, which is his rising sign. And we're going to be talking about that actually first before we go into his moon. So his Pisces rising is conjunct Venus and Mars, and his way of expressing himself is through that Pisces energy of we are all one. This beautiful, peaceful, compassionate and forgiving, unconditionally loving energy that is Pisces in its highest light. It's the ocean. It's really realizing the divine and the divine feminine and divine masculine. And it's actually one of Ed's mission here in this lifetime to literally combine his Venus and Mars, combine his feminine and masculine energies. And his Mars is actually ruling his moon. So this is where the interesting part comes in, because his moon is in Aries, and that's kind of like his past, and that's where he feels really comfortable, and that's his normal comfort zone that he can easily retreat into. And Aries is the warrior, the pioneer. Aries is the one that wants action, and that is the doer, that takes action and takes risks and is not afraid to courageously step into whole new territories that have never been walked on. And that's what he's doing with his community and with Vita, with his retreat center that he's building, and with the tiny houses that he's now creating for different neighborhoods, conscious neighborhoods in Costa Rica and in other countries. And so with Moon and Aries, and Moon, interestingly enough, also rules homes and houses, and his Moon literally being in Aries, like building, pioneering homes for other people and for himself. But first, another way of expressing that Aries Moon is a very masculine-oriented way of do, and always wanting to be in action. And that's how he was when he was a promoter in New York, and he's going to tell us that story, how he went from that very toxic masculine lifestyle that was burning him out. He went into that more slow feminine lifestyle in Costa Rica. And so from that Aries Moon, it's intercepted in his first house, which means that first he has to move through Pisces in order to fully be able to express the light of Aries. And Pisces, as I was saying, is that compassion, the living in sync with life, with cosmos, with nature, with our surroundings. And so he had to move into a different place, shift his paradigm, shift towards a more, bringing in that more feminine energy into his life, and really balance his masculine and feminine energies into a way that feels comfortable to him. And that's how he can fully express his pioneering Aries Moon. Then also his North Node is in Taurus in the second house, and it's actually conjunct Chiron. And the North Node shows what is our soul's purpose, what are we here to experience in this lifetime. And Taurus and the second house is the house of Taurus. So again, we have that double sign, Taurus in his North Node, which means that that's his mission in this lifetime, is to find a sustainable, slow-moving, patient, and persevering way of moving through life. Just like the bull, slow and steady wins the race. And also connection to nature, gardening, really getting his hands dirty, digging in the dirt, and building, becoming that builder of life and the gardener, and growing his roots in nature. And then it's conjunct Chiron, and Chiron is the wounded healer. So for him stepping into his soul's purpose, it was important for him to experience those wounds being reopened, and him really needing to integrate a lot of those wounds. And actually through suffering, he is moving towards his North Node. And ultimately, by feeling into his suffering and into his fears and pains, he is healing those within himself and continuously integrating those lessons. And that's how he is stepping fully into his soul's purpose, and at the same time is the wounded healer to other people, helping them integrate their fears in stepping into that sustainable way of living and that alternative lifestyle themselves. And so that is it from Ed. And if you're interested in finding out more about your own inner blueprint, you can go to my website, hannahchristensen.com/inner-blueprint. And that's where you can book your very personal blueprint. You can also do that for your business or your relationship. And if you use the code SACREDSIS, you also get a special discount. And also, if you haven't already, you can go to our Instagram at Sacred Sister Podcast. We have beautiful, motivating, inspiring quotes there for each of our guests. And we feature artists, and we have upcoming giveaways, like a lot of fun specials and stuff. So check us out at Sacred Sister Podcast. And that is it from me. And now, without further ado, let's move into the interview. Enjoy.
Oh, sacred sister, a kindred flame, may we light one another. From the ashes rise, oh, we rise, oh, again.
Yeah, excellent. So, before we start, just to ground ourselves into presence and into the present moment, just take a deep breath collectively together. And we just hold for a second at the top before we let go. And as you start to notice your breath naturally flowing, just be present to your 5 senses. Become aware of what you feel from your feet rising up through your knees, to your solar plexus, your chest, neck, and head. Just notice anything you may feel in your body, including the clothes, including your bones on the chair or wherever you're sitting. Now notice if any smells come in, the aromas in the air, the smell of nothing. Notice any taste that might be lingering. Notice if you hear anything, internal or external. And if your eyes are closed or open, notice what you see, what's in your visual sense. And as you sit here breathing, aware of all 5 senses, notice that relaxation into the present. Feel yourself in all dimensions here. Whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. If they're closed, we can begin.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. Welcome, Ed. We're so happy to have you here at Sacred Sister Podcast. This is our very first time where we feature just a man. and we're so excited to have you here. This is the Emperor season, so we really want to focus on bringing out the male voices and helping spread the message of this new paradigm shift that is happening around the world within women and men. And you are such a pioneer in what you're doing. Really shifted your life from a fast-paced New York City promotion, party life to beautiful, slowly connecting to nature, living in paradise in Costa Rica. And so we're so excited to be talking about this paradigm shift that happened in your life and how you're now helping others to make that shift and that radical transformation in their lives as well. So welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure and honor. So appreciate it. Very grateful.
Yes, welcome. We're so excited. I called Hannah before this interview and I was like, I'm full of energy right now. I'm so excited to have this conversation because it seems like so many people are having this interest, at least, to intake information and to research and to witness other people's stories, witness other people's transformations in the realm of what modern living even means. We're like reframing and really questioning a lot of what we grew up thinking is normal, and we're redefining a new normal. And this is the reason that we're just so excited the way that season 4 is shaping up to look like, because we're having on these beautiful pioneers who are helping us reframe what life can be. It's so exciting.
Yeah, that's literally it. What life can be.
And it's so powerful to literally, like we're all saying, jumping paradigms, literally having feelings on the inside that are like, wow, maybe it can be something more, and allowing ourselves to have that curiosity is something that can literally change your life.
Absolutely. I love talking about this subject because, well, it's happening now. Before it was ideas and futurism and, kind of envisioning the future of humanity. Now it's actually at that moment in history where we feel it. And not just in the spiritual sense where we do feel energetic things happening, but in a very real, visceral sense, we see it. So I think the conversation has gone from like interest among my friends and people I speak to real research and decisions and steps and actions. And that's an interesting process.
And I feel like it makes so much sense with 2020 being the 4 year in numerology, where we really become aware of the systems and structures and the way of living that is just not sustainable anymore. It's not, excuse me, it's not good for most people. And a lot of these systems and structures are falling apart, and a lot of people have quit their job or lost their job and are actually starting on an entrepreneur journey, are starting to like really see, okay, what is the real meaning of my life? What am I here to do? I'm not just here to live a 9-to-5 job and just kind of like go through the motions and be on that hamster wheel and continuously be on that fast-paced, do, toxic masculine energy that is literally getting us to a burnout, because we're burning our flames so much that we're just burning from the inside out until we have illness, until we have stress, depression, and all of those other pieces that we're seeing in this world right now. So I'm so excited to hear your story, because it's been for you already over 10 years, right? For quite a while that you've been moving to Costa Rica. And what sparked that for you? What has happened? How did that paradigm shift happen in your life?
Yeah, I guess there was the pre-shift, so it happened a little early, like you said. It was about I always say 10, but now it's almost close to 14 years because I realize I get older every year. But yeah, a certain shift started happening in my life where certain things started to change. I started to realize like my spiritual path, my personal development path, everything was kind of taking a drastic shift from my old life in New York, which was super going towards some ladder of accomplishments, whether it's at school or at work or some kind of Maslow hierarchy. Even in personal development, it seemed like there was this like growth engine of like, I have to be my best self. And it was overwork and I got burnt out. Same thing actually happened in my family. So originally, my father was also quite burnt out from work and sought alternative and preventive medicine. So we went through like a big health shift. This was before Whole Foods and that time, just ahead of this whole shift in America towards health. For me, it came with health and spirituality and mental wellness and that whole realm. So I started listening and reading books of Chopra and Tony Robbins and Osho and Alan Watts and you name it. But that whole world started to open up to me. Plant medicine started to open up. But my whole family needed to make a shift because both my father and I were in the same exact place, but different age groups. He was burnt out from his work. I was burnt out from mine. And we wanted to do something in helping people thrive, both in health and wellness and their evolution as people. So we're like, wow, let's make a retreat center and a wellness center and a community, a place where people could live like this. And let's decide where. You know, we literally looked and I was like, wow, this is like kind of what I've dreamed of with an events background, going into experiences and hospitality. And from his side, more professional on the longevity, what it meant to have a healing center and community. But, you know, something else had happened and my parents reminded me this week of it. So my dad at that time, they were Russian immigrants and my dad left, you know, some almost 40 years ago from Russia. And they left because they felt certain systematic changes happening and people called them crazy. They're like, you have a job now and finally money and everything, which is hard in Soviet Russia at that time. And he was like, I need to get my family out of here. And yeah, it took a little bit, but of course, massive shifts happened there. And he got established in America with no job, no title, and had to, you know, kind of like earn his way and et cetera. And here he was again saying like, I smell certain things happening that remind me of those days, not Democrat or Republican or any of that, but just shifts. And I had smelled that plus like this internal shift that's happening in my peers and Burning Man and all of that. So we, you know, at that point we took the leap and we looked around and we found Costa Rica. And with the kind of charge and ignition to create a better way of living, an alternative way of living, and being. So we looked for land all over, but Costa Rica was a country with no army, amazing education rates. It was kind of like the canvas for the exact thing we wanted to paint and have it be fun and have it for families and kids and art. And like, we really wanted to go all out at that time of what it can be like you said. Not too much, like not overboard Jetsons, but yeah, we really explored what is possible when our mind is boundless in that sense of like, how can we really live, you know? And so that was a really fun process. It took years. It didn't happen like we expected it whatsoever. In fact, it looks like a really cool story like this, but it had these ups and downs and massive downs, like life downs that were crazy. And then I guess I wish I could see back in time because, you know, then 2 years later things shift and I'm like, oh, that turned out all right. But at that time I was like biting my nails, like, oh my God, how are we going to fund this eco village? Like banks are not doing this, or, you know, and I was like, okay, like back to the drawing board. So that was nerve wracking and it was a risk. It wasn't like, woo, gonna jump over and start a new life. So yeah, I guess that's the only thing I always tell people is that, you know, that journey is a profound choice. You could take it with like a light step and go investigate and, you know, figure out, but it doesn't mean you have to dive in and burn your life down, but it is a choice no matter how long it takes, you know, if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, and I love that you're so vulnerable with this too, and like really saying, hey, there were a lot of downs too with this, because it can sound like such a beautiful fantasy story where it's like, oh, you just shift your life and then you live in paradise and then that's it. And it was for me the same thing when I came from Germany to America. I also went first, I had to go through hell first in order to find my heaven. And I feel like it's like whenever we make these like big shifts in our lives, we're going through some sort of dark period of self-doubts and of things not working out as we expected. And we have to be flexible. And then it's almost like life is like challenging us in a sense of, how bad do you really want this? How much are you in it? Like how much of your heart is committed to the cause and what are your true intentions. And if you're aligned with your true intentions, you can make it through that, and you go through hell and you find your heaven and paradise. But it's like, that's kind of like the point where some people fall off, where it's not meant for them, and other people that say, I know that this is part of my purpose. I know that this is part of my life, and I'm going to keep on going, even if I'm going through hell, but I just got to keep on going, and I know I will reach paradise.
Yeah, I love that how you said that. And most people don't talk about that part, which is those who are going through the dark night of the soul, or the difficult time, which has to happen for something new to form. Like the old has to break, and that could be really ugly. Relationships, works, whatever, like, you know, and I actually saw all of it, like all check boxes checked. I guess I needed it like a little stronger, because I was holding on a little bit too tight still, and I didn't know. But nobody really talks about that part, and then how to kind of, I don't want to say persevere, but get through that part with confidence. Like, see, there's a community of people doing this. Like, you're not alone. Like, there are things that happened where certain guides, certain information, certain tribe appeared, and I was like, all right, I'm not alone here. This is great. And also a friend who took the permission to say, like, man, I have a family, kids, like, I love this and I'm like into this, but right now, like, I respect the setup I have, and I can't just jump to Costa Rica, but I do want to start exploring this in the US or somewhere else, or, you know, so I'm also super open to whatever time and process that takes, you know, people. We have to be true to ourselves. So, yeah.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much, both of you. I love everything that's coming out of your mouths. And I feel like it's so fun that this Dark Night of the Soul comes up like pretty much, if not every episode, every other episode, that we're intaking people's Dark Night of the Soul. And Hannah and I really, really love focusing on this, because we know what a huge part of the whole process it is, and how imperative it is that we release the veils to look at the not so shiny stuff. And I feel like at least this is a part of the conversation around the law of attraction and manifestation that is starting to rise and get spoken about a lot more, because there are those perceptions that are out there, and there are those teachers that are out there also that do focus on the love and on the light and on the receiving of the abundance, and not necessarily the trenches. But I feel like the trenches are what's starting to come up, and it prompts all of us to get more deep within ourselves to be able to communicate that outward, because it is a vulnerable process, but it's a really important one to be sharing with people as well.
And that's the work, by the way. That's looking at the darkness not as bad, but it's just another pull. It's just another, like, hot and cold water. You know, it's not like you're like, oh, the hot water is bad. No, it's just, this is the stuff to look at and see what comes up there, and to actually, I feel like at the end, just to understand where your inner peace, inner harmony, inner love sits. If you can sit and resonate and be love at any stage, like, that's it.
Exactly.
That's
and letting that guiding force, letting that love, being open to that guidance is what leads you through. But it's like that as above, so below concept, where the vision that you have that is of such beautiful service and benefit to the world, what your unique purpose, a piece of it is, you also have to be open to working through the shit that's going to help you get there, because that's the expansion that you wish to move to, and you've got to balance it on the way up. It's such a beautiful process. Thank you so much for just sharing all those beautiful tidbits.
Yeah, and like I always like to say, it's like the more we want to manifest, the more we have to integrate. And I love too that you have been publishing your integration journal as well. And when I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, that's just so beautiful, because I just for 2021 I just finished publishing my Moon Magic Manifestation Planner, and then the Moon Magic Integration Journal, because it's literally, both of them are important. In order to manifest things, we gotta integrate our shadows. We gotta integrate the lessons that we've learned. And I've actually, the word integration journal and integrative journaling, I downloaded it from Consciousness Grid, and I had no idea that someone else is doing it too. And
I didn't even know if it was a good way to refer to it. I was like, what do you call this kind of stuff?
I know.
So maybe I also downloaded it somewhere.
Totally. And I think it's just
Yeah.
such a beautiful, beautiful proof of how we're all connected to this consciousness grid, and we're downloading these ideas and information from, we're in completely different locations, completely independent from each other, and we can download the exact same idea and then, you know, manifest it into this reality in our own unique way. But the idea is not ours. The idea is in the consciousness grid, is coming from the divine, and we're all connected to that. And it's like, we have a choice. Do we want to put that idea into action, or do we not? And if not, it's okay, because someone else will. But it's just like, it's such a beautiful like help to like detach from these ideas, because they're not ours, right? We're just downloading them. What is ours is how we're manifesting them into reality, and how the design or the details look like, but the what is coming from the divine. So I just think that parallel with you is just so beautiful, that we're both doing integrative journaling. And it's just, it's such a different sort of journaling too, because it's, instead of just like, you know, writing down, I remember like back in the day, I just like wrote pages and pages of stuff that was coming out of me. And it didn't have any structure to it, and I have pages on pages that I probably never gonna read again, honestly.
It's like mind clutter getting out on paper.
Exactly. And with integrative journaling, it's so much more focused and like efficient and productive in a sense, because it's like, okay, you really get down to the lesson of what you're learning, and then instead of having to like repeat it throughout your life, you can like, okay, I journaled through this, I felt through it, I integrated it, and now I can manifest this new level that I'm ready to manifest.
Yeah, I think that integration piece is missing a lot too, and the follow-up of that, you know, of okay, if I'm just being and I'm observing and I'm in less doing mode, and I can integrate what's happening, and I have a place, like I literally keep my journal here, and I'm like, okay, this is the different lessons or things I actually achieved. Like I got a journal, I think 2 years ago, that I really liked, but on the back, they had this like little simple grid that I don't know if shows up, but it's a little habit tracker. And those are my actions. Like when I put something, oh, I want to manifest good health. Well, great. Like, it doesn't have to be habits, call them whatever you want, but that means I want to make sure, even if I don't do it, I just want to see, what's my meditation tracking? How much water am I drinking? Like, you know, basic, like real basic stuff. Did I do my gratitude? You know, and I have my list of what it is, of the actions, but that really helps me to kind of look at these things we're talking about, also be the change in this whole shift in life. I'm like, man, I don't have to go tomorrow, like change the world and save everybody into a regenerative thing. I have to change my own life, live the way I'm talking. And so when I integrate, if I don't have a way to track it, it becomes so difficult. Because I'm like, here I am, the human experiment. We're trying to be the best we can be, from being, not from doing, from a more feminine perspective. But yeah, what is required? It does take some work and energy. So yeah, I think it's helpful to have some process that people make on their own.
Absolutely. Beautiful. I'm so happy that both of you are offering these really beautiful, unique manifestations of what it is that you have to offer the collective. Just about 2 weeks ago, I did a little voice message to Hannah, and I had this download that came through, which speaks to the same thing. I'm working through a lot of throat chakra imbalances within myself, and my husband's a music producer, and we have this collaborative down tempo duo that we do. And it's been so challenging for me to really, you know, work through 7 years of really intense blockages that were stimulated and allow my voice to flow in the way that I know that I flow when I'm by myself. And I had this download that was like, these transmissions are going to come through. You can receive them. You can be open to what it is that wants to come through, because you know what it is whenever you're by yourself. But if you don't feel that you're ready, if you want to, you know, continue doing that inner work, that's fine. But the transmissions will be going someplace. They will be being released in some way. And if it's not through you, then that's fine. Other things will come through you whenever you're ready.
Yeah.
But it's this same idea. And even just this conversation right now, I feel like is so powerful to be releasing to the public, because it's just, I feel like people can really feel through into the grounding, into, oh, what is it that a slower life, a slower mind can look like? What is it that you can really gain from meditation, from really like getting away from what people perceive meditation to be, which is like shutting off your thoughts and reaching this peak bliss experience, and, you know, envisioning it, reframing what that is as well. This is something that I've been working with a lot. But anyways, I'm really curious.
No, but it's very cool. I just want to say one thing about what you mentioned about the voice and different ways and transmissions and working with that. A lot of, like, some of this stuff I do know, and I have my meditation or yoga practice, but I've never until this year and last year, really, this year the most, started to use other ways to release energy and express. So yeah, I had a throat chakra blockage and I started talking online and doing things, but I also started working with a musician to tone and literally make sounds. And then someone brought some like very interesting, like therapeutic, like 30-minute thing where you lay down and you sound into different blocks in your body. So like you said, 7 years of things, or however many years of things we have all these tools to release them. We're multi-dimensional beings. So, you know, art, all of a sudden this year, all these things that I don't do, I give myself permission to do, you know, and that's a really cool thing. It's not like I'm like, oh, I'm not an expert at art or music, I can't share this, or I can't practice this. Like, no way, it's time to shift everything in the possibility realm. Yeah.
And it's so true for people that are listening to this and maybe can't even imagine for their own lives that it is possible to shift to such a big level and like really feel like, okay, I'm gonna leave the state or leave the country or move to nature and just connect in such a deeper way, maybe in a conscious community. I think it's just so important to remember to allow ourselves to dream and allow ourselves to do things that are outside of the box and that are different from what we thought would be possible for us, and give ourselves time to heal and integrate what we have been programmed for years and years and years in this toxic patriarchy that we all grew up in thinking, you know, there are certain results that you need to have done, and you know, focus on the doing and focus on the action, and rest is almost like a reward. It's not like a thing that is normal. Rest and play is like, oh yeah, if you do all your work, then you can rest and play. But it's like, the work is never done. It's like a constant running and running and running. And so I would love for you to share a little bit how much of your lifestyle has changed from when you lived in New York and when you live here in Costa Rica. So what has changed when you like wake up in the morning in New York and now when you wake up in the morning in Costa Rica? How does your day look like?
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, that whole process of like when I changed how my life looked before and after, and the whole process of growth, I think, can be fun. Like there are parts where I definitely suffered, but it was a choice. I chose to be a victim and not the responsible leader of my life. So then I looked at how do I want my ideal day to look? And my buddy Mike Hill helped me recently actually redo this exercise, literally like how I want my life, my day to look, very granular too. Like he was like, get down by the hour. And I was like, what? I just meant like yoga and this. He's like, no, man, how does your day look? Like, when are you working? When are you on calls? When are you not, you know? And so you talk about this dream life, let's spell it out. So yeah, in New York was a lot of doing for me. I was super busy. I was like, when I was in high school, it was great grades and working extracurricular. At that time, I was nightlife and event producer. So, you know, I was working late. I was on sports teams. So it was kind of like make my parents proud mode and become somebody, you know, some Tony Robbins, whatever, huge inspired leader. And that was a lot. That was definitely a lot of pressure on myself. And yeah, this just going in and I don't know what people call it, the rat race, but for me, it was just a wheel of accomplishments. I didn't see myself in like a system of a rat race at that time. And yeah, then when certain things started to shift in my life, I always had fun. I always traveled. I knew my values, you know, hang out with friends, build good tribe, have unique experiences, music, art. Like I integrated that into my life early, but my life was on overdrive, you know? And so it happened first when we had our kind of wellness shift. My grandpa got pancreatic cancer. My whole family looked at how we're living, how we're eating. I was like definitely overworked and in toxic body from nightlife. Yeah, and when I started shifting and cleaning out with preventive doctors, then my dad had found functional medicine, all sorts of things at that time, cleaning out heavy metals, different stuff. Yeah, things started to shift, and I started to, you know, start my journaling practice, my morning practice, which was, you know, meditation and yoga and breathing exercises and a little manifestation and gratitude thing. And then I realized I was even obsessed about that. I was like, wow, I got to accomplish this as my morning routine. And I would read people's like blog posts, like inspiring morning routines from like top creators in the world. And I was like, fuck, this is so much, excuse my language. This is you know, again, the same almost spiritual rat race. So yeah, so, you know, then there came a point where a lot of things shifted, obviously. And I stopped worrying as much and started relaxing into whatever my truth was. Had some very difficult things happen in my life, and cancers in the family and divorces and you name it, like life was tough. And the one thing that shifted, I don't want to say when I moved to Costa Rica, but in a certain time of life, once I integrated Costa Rica or this alternative way of living and etc., things just started to really relax and find their place. And I was like, oh, if I'm being, what do I want to be? And how do I want to be if I'm not in constant doing mode? I'm like, cool, like I have a certain amount of time to my health and wellness, to my family. Like even in my journal, I have morning snuggle time. That's a 15-minute meditation where I tell my partner that I love her, you know, and we just snuggle. And that's a huge practice for me, that sometimes I would wake up and I'd be like, oh, cool. Like, let me see what calls I have today. Like, that shit doesn't matter. Like it does at 9 a.m. or some point, whatever your timeline is, but really buffering out that ideal morning. Then I was like, ooh, also afternoon, I want to wind down. I want to either Netflix or Gaia TV or read a book or be with my partner or do something all together. And then I was like, ooh, that leaves a little cushion in the day for work, you know? And I was like, part of that has to be my stuff, whatever like I'm working on. A lot of times like you get on calls and you're like, did I do any work today? Like it feels like it, but did I? So then I blocked my workout, you know, and then I was like, holy crap, that means I only have 2 more windows in the day to do something. Like that might be a call or whatever, but that has to be pretty intentional. And then I spent a long time seeing myself not doing what I just said. And I was like, oh man. And I wouldn't beat myself up. I would just notice, like, you have this vision of an ideal life and you want to go on adventures and do this and have a career and have some purpose. Like really like stick to it, you know, even if one part doesn't happen. Everyone always talks about the financial part, but man, I meet people who are coming to Costa Rica now or like skipping out on Dodge, and they're really good on the financial side, but the whole rest of it is a nightmare. Their schedules are blocked, and I'm like, holy crap, like I'm actually living on that part okay, like very like, you know, good life pace. But then, okay, let's get the financial in line, but not by compromising any of that, you know, any values or North stars. So yeah, I think the major shift, I guess, that if you ask me at the end, like in summary, was going from doing a lot to being, and then actually putting some tangible stuff to what that meant. Yeah. Some time to be.
Yeah. Because ultimately being and like spending quality time, if that's with yourself, if that's with nature, if that's with your loved ones, is like the most precious thing that we have in life, truly. And it's really what we're looking back on.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You made a good point.
Yeah.
That's simple though, what you just said. Good memories, family, loved ones, friends, travel, nature, whatever that category is. But
Yeah, that experience of life, right? Because otherwise we're just existing. We want to like really just live in the moment and be present. And then at the same time also plan for the future and also integrate the past. You know, it's like we're going to be present, future and past. We're multidimensional beings, but just so that we don't get stuck in the future and, you know, worry about it and get stressed about it. Or we get stuck in the past and be like, oh, just like be really depressed on what has happened and what has been going on. But finding like a balance between the three.
It's a hard thing. I mean, that's being present. You know, you're not worrying about the future. You're not analyzing the past. There is data there that's feeding into where you are right now. Yeah.
I feel like I just realized this recently. The last 2 years of my life have been such an upheaval of my root system and learning how to kind of repack myself, replant my roots with new materials. I lost both of my parents in the last 2 years, and it's been this realization of the importance of grounding on the level of, I just kept seeing in my meditation the other day, these exposed roots and this root system that I can feel into myself, that I feel unsafe, I feel unsupported, I feel naked, I feel raw. And it's almost this practice of learning what it is that is to fertilize my soil, and that is to help me feel supported and surrounded by those nutrients and those minerals, so that I can start learning how to regrow myself. And I realized, wow, the magic in grounding is that when you are feeling into that, you are making yourself available for whatever it is on the inside that wishes to be experienced. And so many of us are so uncomfortable with sitting with that that space where we're just an open faucet to see what comes out. Because a lot of us don't even have the tools, is the thing. We don't even have the tools for how to process. We don't even know how it is. It's like unnerving to deal with the stuff that we've experienced, because we're just like, like, what do we even do with this? And
Nothing. Just let it be. Everyone also thinks that they have to like immediately transform it or transmute it. That's the most difficult part, and nobody talks about it. Just all you have to do is let it be. You don't have to do anything to it. You don't have. You just, like you said, you see it. Okay, like great, but you don't have to like immediately transmute it and transform it and let me give it to God. Like, just be with it for a second. Like, just seeing it sheds light upon it and lets it start to dissipate.
Yes, and that's that shadow work that we're talking about here in the Sacred Sister podcast a lot too, and just allowing those fears to just sit with us for a while. I just recently had that. I have a monthly gathering, a bi-monthly gathering online, and it's called the Moon Goddess Club. And just this Monday, actually, it was that before, it was like an hour before the call, and I could feel such like overwhelm and like guilt, and just like feel like dark shadows coming up. And I'm like, all right, you know what? I have to sit with this, because I'm not going to bring those to the call. So I just took a time to just sit with them and listen to them. I like to see them as like little beings and be like, all right, guilt, what's going on? Like, where's he come from?
Beautiful.
You know, what do you want? What's your, you know, me as being a mom, I know from my child, if she talks to me and I listen, she's good. But if I like ignore her, she gets louder and louder and throws tantrums. So I know with my shadows, if they come up and I listen to them, I can integrate them. It's fine, you know, take some time, let them flow through, and then connecting to the light again, and feeling so free because I've integrated them. But if I ignore them and just be like, you know, it's not a big deal. Why am I even feeling this way? I just have to focus on the positive. I just gotta keep on going. Just like ignore those fears, just push them away. Then they're just gonna come back stronger and stronger and bigger through other people, through circumstances, and bring like tower moments into our lives. So it's like, whoa, where does that even come from? How is that even just coming out of me right now? And so it makes it a little bit easier in a sense when we like regularly do that. It's almost like a regularly cleaning. If we regularly clean our house, it's much easier than if we just let it go to like complete mess and then have to clean it out.
There's a great book about that. One of my favorite women in personal development, Debbie Ford, wrote a book called Dark Side of the Light Chasers. I don't know if some people might have heard of it or not, but my buddy, one of my close friends, recommended it for me when I was doing that shadow work. And it's awesome what you said, because she does the same thing where when you talk about sitting with it and looking at the shadow, you give them names, you give them shapes and characters, and she has all these exercises that she leads you through. And I thought that was super helpful. I mean, I feel like I've dedicated my life to this like personal development stuff. And then I was like, when people talk about grounding or shadow work or this, like, what do they mean? And like being with the stuff, I'm like, can someone spell that? I'm a how person. So she really spelled out how. It was almost like I had to go to like kids' mind, beginner's mind. I was like, okay, this is what my thing is. It's guilt. We're going to call him Guilty Pete, This is what his beef is with me right now, And then I had all these sub-personality things that she makes you do. And I had like validating Victor, who like always needed some validation. Like, good job, Ed, And I took him on there's one exercise, I took him on a school bus and I'm like, what's wrong, Victor? And he was like, like I'm just doing so much and I don't feel really acknowledged for it by anybody, including mom and dad. And then I was like, all right, man, that's cool, but you're doing a great job. Like, I'm so proud of you, man. Like, you're crushing life. And he was like, all right. And I was like, good talk, Victor. And then, I thought it was so silly, but I'm like, this is the work. Okay. By the time I was done, I was like, Mike, this is the best book ever.
And it makes it fun, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it really makes it fun.
At least an element of fun.
And I like to and I like to see it as I'm really excited to look into your chart, because these little sub-personalities show up in our natal chart. So I'm gonna look for validating Victor in your chart and for
show me what we got. Oh, and then the worst was, the guilt thing. I'm like, oh, I've dealt with a lot of guilt, and then I see like I'm always like around a lot of like practitioners and healers because the work I do, and they're like, whoa, like you definitely handled your guilt, and I'm like, great, and they're like, but you have this whole ancestral lineage of guilt. Are you Russian? Are you this? And I'm like, oh my God, now I gotta go clean the ancestral stuff. I'm looking for like Akashic plumber on Google. But like, there's like never ending layers of like the work. I'm like, oh.
It's so beautiful too, because when we integrate our own stuff, then also at the same time we're integrating for the collective, and especially for people like us who are doing the work and who are interested in expanding consciousness. It's also part of the work to do the shadow work as well. As a light worker, we're doing the good in the world, but we're also helping integrate the shadow that has been going on this planet in humanity. And I feel like right now, especially, it's such a potent time to become aware of these techniques to integrate, because there's so much shit going on and everything is coming out literally to the surface. All the shadow is coming to the surface, and a lot of people are really overwhelmed by it. So for people like us that have been already doing a lot of our own inner shadow work, we're kind of getting used to it, and it makes it easier for us to take on the ancestral lineage or take on some of that collective shadow as well. And it's like part of our way of how we can really help this world as well, even though it's not like something from the outside that you can see and say, yeah, I just integrated the shadow of the collective. People like, yeah, sure, you did. But, we can't see it from the outside, but it's like that's our inner work that we're doing for ourselves, but also for the collective.
Yeah, well said. Well said. And I sometimes feel like it's okay also to understand that you don't have to clear a lot of this past traumas, karma, whatever. It's just enough to own it. And also take the other side of that. Everyone talks about getting rid of the and transcending it. But again, just owning it, like, that's okay. Like, that is okay that, my people, my Russian people or whatever it was, felt that they had to work hard to earn a living. Okay, and that's a block that I had to go through, that if I wasn't working hard, I didn't deserve abundance and a good living. But then there's a point where you just own it and you're like, okay, this makes me who I am. I'm going to go forward. I don't have to go and clean that karma and be the opposite. That might be impossible.
Yeah.
It's owning the balance of both of those latitudes,
Yeah. And when we own it, then we can also forgive others who are in it still.
That's the big one, by the way, Hannah. You touched it. The forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Forgiving others, forgiving ourselves.
Because if we're like detaching ourselves from our past too, and be like, gosh, I'm glad that I'm not that person anymore, I'm completely different now, then we're detaching from that, and then it's easy to hate on the people that are still in that realm and that are still in the past, even though there's just
also.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. I don't
Go
know who
ahead.
was saying something.
I was just going to say, I'm so grateful this is coming up right now, because just this week I was reading on a Facebook group that I'm a part of. This woman was talking about burying her past selves. And I was like, oh, wow, what an interesting concept. And I was like, do I resonate with that concept? Because then these little things come up that's like, oh, is that my truth too? And I realized that actually that sort of concept, while I'm, it's great that she feels really empowered with that frame of looking at her personal development path, I was like, oh no, that's actually not uncomfortable for me, but it just doesn't resonate in the slightest, because I really like witnessing myself as what I know so many past versions of myself has been, and all the future self timelines that I'm able to look into. That is like a really, really enriching, just like such a beautiful thing that makes me feel so strong. I don't ever feel like I really need to like bury past versions of myself. And I verbalized this because I was like, I just want to be, presenting an alternative perspective. And then it seemed like it was almost this thing to work toward. Like, even though I haven't gotten there yet, it's kind of this ultimate thing to sort of want for yourself. And again, I was like, yeah, I don't know if it is for me at this point in my life. Maybe it will be in the future, and it's fine that it is that for you now. But this is another really important thing that I'm finding right now, is the verbalization and the vulnerability to communicate something that might be alternative or might be a different perspective, just because sometimes we can think of those ultimate truths, we can get into our mind that it's like, oh, well, this is the way and this is the path, this is what it's supposed to look like. And at least for myself as a personal transformation coach, it's really important for me to question or to ask people to question what their personal truths are.
Yeah, their truth, not someone else's.
Yeah, to cultivate
which is their
that
experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I feel like there's that concept that people say is like a little complicated, like letting go of knowledge or unknown, like basically like knowing nothing again and getting rid of all the stuff that's up here. And I think there's no way to kind of erase something unless you prove a certain belief that's no longer true to you. But really, wisdom comes from experience. Knowledge and things that a guru tells you or somebody tells you, that's their experience and them transmitting something. It's not your truth. So that's why I always feel like it's really cool to see what's going on, but really it's all about you and your truth, like you said, and nobody else's. And then your experience will become your wisdom. Might not work for somebody else, but you could at least share that love, share that truth with other people. And just from being, that's the thing, I guess. There's not much, so you could write a book and you could do different things, but really when you're around somebody that feels like they've done some good things, you feel that glow from them. You're like, wow, they're really feeling good to me. Whatever that woman's doing, like, give me a glass of that, that feeling is usually a feeling, exactly that, of being around them, and of an experience, not of some knowledge she tells you, like, oh, like this and this is the way to clear a block. Nah. I don't buy it today in a way, it's like, cool, that's interesting, but what's my truth
Yeah.
among
And
all that?
and
Yeah.
I feel like it's just so beautiful too at the same time to get inspired by others, because remember when you were just starting your journey and you read all these different books and you were saying, you know, you literally you had to shift your truth. So if you were to say back then and be like, hey, just be your truth, just share whatever your truth is, your truth manifested a lifestyle that you were sick of, literally, you know. And so then it's like, okay, what else is out there? And that's where it comes so beautifully in when others are sharing their truth, because we can be inspired through that, and then through that find our own truth. It's like, you know, learning the rules and then break them kind of stuff.
And a
Yeah,
break,
and
and
just
also in that,
experiment with it.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and especially, you know, one of the subjects that you're saying, experimenting with new living and new places and all this topic, which I feel like we started with a whole different side of things, which I've enjoyed more. I'm like, great, this is what we really need to talk about. But all that stuff, you really have to be true to yourself too. Like, I have friends living in like eco huts in the jungle, like, yeah, man, I'm loving this. And they're getting bit by mosquitoes. And they're like, this is it. I'm living like the, you know. And I did that. Like, I did this thing where I thought like I had to be like suffer, like also like uncomfortable ecologically and etc. So I'm like, whoa, what do I want life to be like? What temperature do I want to live in? What kind of home? Do I want it like all closed up and with AC and not feel guilty again, or feel like, whoa, I'm not being, no, like these are steps. So yeah, like no bugs, comfort, place that I'm with clean air. Like, what do you really want in life? You don't even have to say where yet. You know, mountain, ocean, adventures, hikes, I don't know, whatever it is, like all of that stuff is part of the shift, you know. And so when you go into a new country or a new place, I feel like everyone's this like warrior in the beginning. They're like, ah, here we go. Like, and also people with families, it's like this big leap, and it can start with an experience of that builds your comfort level, you know. And builds you, yeah, like dipping the toe in a little bit. You don't have to freaking pull the band-aid off and like, that's it, like we pulled our kids out of school and we made the jump to a new life. And like, then I see those cases where they're like, oh my God, I need support, you know.
Yeah.
And if they don't get it, it's really tough on couples, on families, even on single people. And then they become one of those like, what do you do? Like, I'm just a digital nomad here. And then like, oh, am I a digital nomad? Like, what the hell is this? But yeah, all of that stuff, like as long as people are really true to what they want, I think that journey can become a lot easier for people, and slow.
Yes.
Like really be sure where, you know.
And I love what you do with Puerta de la Vida, right? It's called Puerta de la Vida.
The bigger project is Puerta La Vida. The retreat center at the project that we operate is Vida, and then the community. But yeah.
Yes, because it's the dream of it. It's still in the process of being created, but I was reading that with my husband, and he really resonated with that, because I was always, you know, I feel really called to connect deeper with nature and go into conscious community. And my husband was a little hesitant towards it because, you know, he there is like this little thing about hippie communes, and you know, just like this judgment around conscious communities and how they can also look like, and how it can be really toxic in a way. And there have been communes that have been really toxic in the past, and so he was really hesitant to that. But then when we read your dream and your vision for it, it's like based on, you know, entrepreneurs that come together, like pioneers, trailblazers that want to bridge the modern life with the alternative life. So like finding that balance between the two, still have technology, not being completely off grid, completely back to the jungle kind of thing, but still having the modern comforts, but sustainably and in connection with nature.
Yeah, and also that I found that really important when I like studied community and lived in community and traveled looking at it. A lot of it didn't work. A lot of it was wrought with conflicts and things that were really hard. So this idea that like we had to have intentional communities too, I had to really question. And I still believe in them and help projects and consult people building communities and centers. But, you know, really also this year, neighborhoods started coming up, and kind of our energy behind Vita was also more of a neighborhood of really interesting people, but where people had their individual freedom, you know.
Yeah.
Now we're doing these kind of tiny house pods. We call them nucleus. So these little nucleos are essentially us being able to build independent small neighborhoods, you know, with 4 homes for people who want to get like an experience of what this life is like, but also travel. So that concept, we completely scrapped the one project model and said, wow, like let's be part of all these budding neighborhoods and allow people to transition in and feel what it's like to live in one part of Costa Rica or in Portugal, where some of our friends are, and even at Vita in our own project, to have a pod where people can come stay and say, whoa, what's this life like? Cool. With this kind of home and with this kind of food, like I'm in. And then also I'm in all the time. Like I want to do this, or man, I'm in half the year. The rest, maybe I want to travel or be in my home country. So that's also a decision that people can make. And with Vita, we actually just had to operate the retreat center because when we started the community, it was kind of early. Like we had permits and stuff, but people weren't making that leap as much. But we found people were coming for transformational experiences. So we started working with top retreat leaders, and that was my passion in experience design, to really create a place and really an experience of it. And now with all the changes in the world, the community is coming up again in different parts. That's what I meant when it didn't happen as we planned. I like came to build an eco village, and Universe was like, hold on 8 years. And I was like, oh, okay. They're like, healing and transformation work, you're good to go, you know? I'm like, okay. And I guess that's the experience. That's, you know, a couple thousand people coming through the doors over some years to experience, like, what is all this mumbo jumbo about, you know? This cosmic soup of things. And then they're like, whoa, like, this is cool. I love this place. I love everything. You know, give me an AC and like I could do this in part of my life, or give me something, a creature comfort, good Wi-Fi. So yeah, now I think looking at it, it's to keep doing that, giving people that experience, and helping them with the solutions they need to bridge to this life. Some of them are really simple. Families like with information on schools, different aspects of that kind of stuff, legally, financially. Like people ask me really basic questions, but those are the hard ones. You know, and it's like, oh, what do you do for like banking, and what do you do about Amazon packages? And like, whoa, you got to save the Amazon conversation till the future, you know, because that could bring the whole plane crashing down. They're like, what do you mean you don't get Amazon? And I'm like, yeah, I don't get Amazon. And they're like, what? They're like, well, how do you live? And I'm like, I live just great. You're like, but you know, and certain things to make that super comfortable. I'm like, when you get to another country or another thing, like get your person on the ground that's going to help you. Get like a good lawyer. Usually it's lawyers who can offer all sorts of services to help you with bank accounts and immigration. And if you're just traveling somewhere, that's cool. But I mean, if you're really considering making a leap into another country, that's, I think, very useful to have a support structure.
And the specialty of Costa Rica is that you can buy land and housing there without being a citizen.
Yeah, and there's a few other countries where you can, but Costa Rica, it's really nice structure. You can buy land, you can buy and own the title to a property. You could build there, you could open a bank account, and you can get a residency if you invest, like, I think it's 250K, or you put like 60K in a bank account and you show that you're not a bum, like on freeloading on the system, they're like, you could stay. So
or
as
if you
long as
have a
they see you're
baby there too.
that's a great way to have a baby, get married. There's so many ways. But yeah, really, that's very nice to know that you can actually have a resident status, eventually citizen status in another country. And it actually does help on like taxes and other things when you're open about it, because like US, for example, for anyone in the US, it's the only country where it really matters, but we're taxed on foreign earned income, like money you earn somewhere else as a professional. You get taxed on in the US. But, you know, with Costa Rica and with a few other countries, you have, well, living abroad, you have 150K of foreign earned income that's exempt from US taxes no matter where you live. So it's like little things like that that make it really nice for people to know, like, okay, I can earn a living. Am I going to be taxed? Do I have to leave every 3 months? No, I could be a resident. What about school? okay, cool, bank account done. And then you look at a short list of things, and I did them in one of the presentations that's on my website. But we did a talk where we showed all those bullet points. It's not that crazy of a list. You iron them out, and all of a sudden, you're feeling really good.
Mm-hmm. And then the
You're
dream
like,
becomes a plan.
yeah, then the dream becomes a plan. And then plans change and God laughs.
and then you're open to it.
Yeah.
So
then you adjust the dream.
So these were a lot of the comments. I made an Instagram story last night, and these were a lot of the questions that I was getting. The simple things like you were saying about permits, and how do you know what kind of plot of land to buy, and how do you know what kind of permits that you need for, someone said, my husband and I want to build a container home, and how do you know what kind of permits that you need for that? So even these kinds of things seem like relatively simple if you were to actually start doing the investigations, or how would you speak to that?
Yeah, I would definitely speak to it that those people shouldn't have those answers, like a professional should. So whoever if you're going to another country to do that, you have your development companies, your builders. In Costa Rica, we work with a great company, CJI, Design and Development, and they do that whole process for people. They look at the land they want to buy, they tell them what they can build, if they can build, what size, they price it all out. So like before that, it was like, I felt like I was in the Wild West. I was like going to find out info on permits, and most people do all this stuff, and they're like, okay, it's not even paying a lot. It's like paying a little bit in the process to get your due diligence done, from legal and like buying land and all of that, to development. Like, yes, like this builder said I could build this house for this much money. Great, you have a complete picture. You're not like jumping in like, oh my God, we visited Costa Rica, and then someone's like, we bought land our first week there. And I was like, that is horrible. And it might be okay, but I'm like, that is very likely way too quick. Like, you need to do some research, and they're like, holy crap, we can't build on 90% of our property, or this came out way more than we thought, the driveway and the drainage. And I'm like, so pay the freaking company that will tell you what that costs. And it's, 2 or 3 experts. Like, you get a legal and finance person who can give you some advice, and a development or real estate company that can give you some advice. So, those people are out there, and a lot of times they give free information because they know you're going to hire them to do whatever work. So they can actually educate you as a consumer, like, this is what we would do for you. And you're like, oh, thank God I called you. Yeah.
So we're going to do obviously an intro kind of giving your backstory and what it is that you're offering to the world. But for anyone that's been listening to this about the 2 different projects, can you in your own words describe what it is that you're offering and how they're different and what you help people with and all of that?
Yeah, the project that Hannah mentioned is kind of my background and foreground. It's Vita. It's our actual retreat center and community. And the website's experiencevita.com. So you can kind of have a sense for what we do there and what's growing there. And so that's been my baby for some years, and it's now at a stable place. Like, we have an operating company for the retreat center, the community. We have all our people, but it's allowed me to also step back to work on my bigger mission as a bridge and as a connector to help people to this life. And that's been quite exciting. That's a project we call Nucleus. The website Hannah mentioned is Live the Possibility. It's kind of our teaser site while we're launching it, showing kind of tiny houses and alternative living, which we help people with. We help them on that whole journey. But really, we realized the one thing that was needed was an example, an experience, like we said earlier, of what this way of life is. So we're really building out these tiny house clusters that people can stay in or own, like, should they want, in these areas, and feeling out what this life is like. And then deciding where they want to build and live. And we show them all these cool communities and projects all over the world. And we show them those solutions that you mentioned, from the build team to the legal. We're like, great, if you really like Costa Rica, these are the 4 awesome projects. We're one of them, but great, these are the great people who build sustainable stuff. So connecting people to that resource you could see on Live the Possibility. And the new project's launching soon, but enough info there to get your palate wet.
Yeah, and then you were also saying that you're forming this epic regenerative alliance.
Yeah,
Can you
yeah,
talk a
that's
little
actually
bit
we're
more
having.
about that?
Yeah, so I found it, my big passion from like sharing any like experience that I've had or wisdom is in building retreats and communities. So I've helped and consulted a lot of projects that I think are the pioneering eco villages, healing centers of tomorrow. And while I'm helping these people, I'm like, holy crap, we all have to come together. Like I've built community at Burning Man and other times. I'm like, what about the community of all these pioneers and people doing these great things? We have a lot to learn from each other. A lot of things we're doing double, like bylaws of communities and the rules. And so, yeah, the idea is basically to bring this group together, think tank, share knowledge, and connect in a deeper way. So that is, we're having our first convening actually to set what the group will be about, and really what we want to accomplish with it. But yeah, the goal is to keep the best practices and the ecosystem growing that we're in. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah.
I was just going to say it's so exciting just hearing and sitting down with someone to really talk about their experience with this. I know Hannah has huge interest. She has plans in motion for cultivating something like this for her family. My husband and I have been setting into our intention list, our game plan to be saving a lot of money so that we can either buy a plot of land or move to some place that we really deeply resonate with. But we do have an intention. We have those similar feelings that you were saying that your dad was feeling, these shifts that we don't know what it's going to look like necessarily, but we do feel that we want to be integrating ourselves or integrating ourselves more deeply out of this system and being less reliant on the systems that are continuing and keeping us circling around a lifestyle that Key and I just don't feel resonant with at all anymore. Not at all, but you know what I mean. Becoming more independent, becoming more closely integrated with nature, taking bigger responsibility over growing our own food and feeding ourselves more closely to the earth. And it's just so exciting. I feel this surge in the collective that it's like time for people to really start reckoning with what's going on, what we're witnessing in front of our eyes. The systems are making people feel very, very uncomfortable. And it's kind of like we're getting to a point where we're like, well, what do we do about it?
Yeah.
What do we do?
And it's like, instead of, complaining about it and putting a lot of fear and worry into it, that is actually feeding that very system that we not want to have happen. Shifting our perspective, shifting our paradigm to creating that community and creating that way of living for future generations, for ourselves and for our kids and grandchildren that we do desire and that we dream of, that we think that this is the way that we want to live on this planet. That is so powerful because it takes when we look at leaders from our country to make these decisions for us, then we give away our powers to them, and we're literally part of the big game that is being played on us, and we're just pawns in that game, and we don't have much to say. But if we take and reclaim our powers and be like, you know what, I'm a sovereign being, I am my own leader of my own life, and I have the power to create my own community, I have the power to create my own way of living, that's when we can let go of those fears and worries more so, and we can focus on creating the new instead of trying to destroy the old.
Fight it.
And fight it.
And you see people doing that right now. You have people who are trying to fix the old and they're holding on and they're posting about this and COVIDs and everything, and the system is falling apart, and that's great. And you could be in that place of analyzing the old and being in fear, but if I look at what it means to be in love, it's just creating the next thing and letting it go, the next thing in our life, the next thing in humanity, whatever. But that's what being in love and creating from love is to me. Like, I want friends and family and people thriving and no pollution, and that's love to me. So yeah, I definitely think we can look at two sides of the same coin. And also in this crazy time we're in, you could really see some people like loving and thriving and so happy that they're out of a job and in nature, and some people literally the same position, like, you know, like, humanity, help me out.
Yeah.
Ain't gonna help you out.
Yeah. Not humanity can help if you're connected with your tribe. If you're connected
Yep.
with your
That's a
soul
good,
tribe,
that's a
with
good
your
point.
community, then humanity
Yeah.
can be so beautiful. But I think we are being told that humanity, you know, that there is a separation in humanity and that we have to have enemies within that humanity. And I think that creates a lot of loneliness for people and like hopelessness.
Yeah.
But just realizing through the technology, like thanks to technology, I was able to meet and, you know,
Yeah.
get to know you, Ed, because otherwise we would have never met, you know. But we're like going through similar, you know, even with the integrative journaling, we're having like a similar channel that we're connecting to. And it's just so beautiful with technology that we are now able to connect with people around the world and can create those communities and can already feel out experiences in other worlds and lands without actually having to be there physically.
Yeah, it is really amazing, this connection that happens digitally too, and how it happens. I feel like people are very lonely, and connection is so freaking important. I'm glad we connected and you reached out, and I was like, oh, who is this person? And I was like, what a nice email. We're gonna talk more.
So
So yeah, I'm
beautiful.
very grateful.
And it's like the isolation piece too, right? Literally isolating ourselves as it's being made to. And it's so easy to fall into the fear trap. It's so
Yeah,
easy. I think it's kind of by design that this is happening on some level, just to bring our awareness to the fact that it's going on in the first place. Because a lot of people need to see it going on to even start questioning or being like, man, is this all that life is now? Is this what it's going to be? And then
yeah,
those little tiny seeds of ideas can get them Googling and get them like, what else is there out there?
great.
Because I'm getting freaked
Yeah,
out right now.
Google, Pinterest, Gaia TV, which is great. I love Gaia TV. Whatever it is that can, you know, a good book, I don't know, like whatever can open your, you know. I actually really
Exactly.
liked, we made a mood board with my girlfriend around New Year's on Pinterest. You know, the things we saw life as, we like actually wanted to visualize them. And I was like, oh, this, feel like I haven't done a vision board in like a while, but actually doing it, I was like, whoa, cool.
So
You know,
beautiful. Hannah came
yeah.
over to my house, and me, her, and my husband each made vision boards
Yes.
right for the new year as
Love
well.
that. So
And mine's
cool.
up here.
Oh, so cool.
Mine's back here.
Yay.
Yeah, it's so powerful when we allow ourselves to visualize and like put it on paper, write about it, you know,
Feel
like
it.
really
Yeah.
making it real, just like you were saying that, you know, really write down your daily, like how does it really look like? Write down the time from one to when what do you do? How
Yeah.
much time do you have? Because that's when it becomes real, right? That's when we manifest it. But first we got to also go through the integration piece. So
And be it. Yeah. To manifest, you really have to be the person that is living that way, which is where the integration comes. And
yes.
when you're that person and living that way, that can be in your frequency. If
And
you're
I
not, you're like,
totally. And I love that you were saying that you already started that in New York, becoming that person that you are now who lives in Costa Rica. Because sometimes it's like, okay, I'm just going to, you know, move into another place and then I'm a completely different person. Like, no, we're still going to take all our shadows with us and all our baggage. But it's like nice to like do the change already before, at least get it started, and then go to that location and, you know, build upon that with that new foundation.
I wish I knew that going backwards. Looking back now, it's easy, but yeah, back then I was like, what's going on?
What would you say is like one of the things that was like the main or like a mistake that you made that you would like recommend other people not to make? And is there anything that you miss not living in the US anymore?
I would say the number one suggestion is take your time. Like a lot of people, you know, definitely be really patient with yourself and the process and the where and with who, and that whole journey. Like really investigate. Don't jump so quickly. Give yourself that luxury of time and peace, and being very sure. Yeah, so I definitely say that. And what was the second part of that? So the one mistake, the one thing.
Yes, and if you're missing something from that US
Oh,
life that you had.
no, I don't really feel that I'm missing anything because I've adjusted. There were things I missed, mostly conveniences. Like, again, I joked about Amazon, but US, everything is such a modern society that, yeah, there are certain conveniences I miss here, but really no, like it's become like my way of life, and I know that. I also said that I don't want to, living abroad, feel like I'm stuck abroad. So I travel a lot. People are like, oh, do you miss US? I'm like, yeah, from 2 months ago. Like, I don't know, it's a really close trip. That's why I chose Costa Rica. It's like it's shorter than a flight from New York to California. So I'm like, it doesn't mean that because you live abroad, you're like, that's it, hand in the passport, you know? So now I love now with COVID, it's a little tougher, but not really. Like I have friends who travel a lot. They wear a mask and they travel once every couple months, whatever. So again, it's like, you don't have to really like, damn, I have this life, not that life. This is your life to create, whatever you want. You want to have both, you know, go for it.
Yes, that's my dream too, to like still keep
Yeah.
a base in the US and, you know, our base in Germany, but then also having one in Costa
Yeah.
Rica, the
That's
rich
a lot of my
coast.
friends too. A lot of my friends say that and they're like, oh my God, does that mean we have to be multimillionaires? Or no, like this is what you said you wanted, homes or a way to go between these places. Then look at the scenarios that life might show you. Like one is your actual home, the other is something share with some friends and earn an income on when you're not using it. So it's like, oh, that luxury is actually earning me and part of my income and my living to enjoy this life. And so it's funny when you put your criteria, how life can set it up to work in ways that you never thought, you know?
Totally.
I love
By the way,
that. Oh, go ahead.
oh no, I was just gonna say I am noticing the time that soon I will have to go because I made a promise to my partner to hang out in a little bit. And she peeked in while we were doing the interview, and I was like, I know, honey, I'm doing a long podcast, but I wanted to be mindful to the divine feminine in my life.
Yes, beautiful.
That
We
this
appreciate
happening
that.
live, you got to see my growth process live.
We appreciate that very much, and we thank you so much for your time, and we have just like 3 questions that we ask at the end of each episode, and they're really short, so you can just like make them as quick as you want. And so the first question is, what is a sacred sister or a sacred brother to you?
That's a really good question. I'm not going to rush it. Sacred sister to me, and a sacred brother is kind of my cosmic family. In a way, for me, it also feels like someone I've been on a journey with before and somehow I'm meeting again, even if I don't know them, or someone I'm on a journey with now, but I'm like, man, we're on the same path, sister, you know, like we're doing this. So everyone's my sacred sister and sacred brother. Like I love everyone and I feel like we are all truly one. But when I actually think about it and I'm honest, it's those people who are really in my journey, even new people who just appeared in my life. I'm like, oh, this is a sacred brother or sister and we just met. So yeah.
Beautiful. You're on mute, Brett.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. And what are 3 things that you consider sacred in your own life? How do you turn the sacred from the mundane, what someone considered to be the mundane?
A lot of ritual in my life. Seeing every day as a ritual, even how I walk, what impact I have on the ground, my morning and evening practices, really owning the kind of sacredness to my life, my practice, my being, and whatever I do, doing it with purpose, not just, you know, really being conscious of what I do. Then it's really a sacred practice. My work, my art, my health and exercise, like it's all part of one big sacred practice. Then, yeah.
Beautiful. And then just, we've been already talking about sacred, and usually that's actually our first question. What does what does sacred mean to you?
Ooh, what does sacred mean to me? It's a great question. Let me really think about it. Yeah, something that's really based in truth and my truth. It's something sacred to me. So that would mean to me that it's, if it's a sacred sister or brother, like you just said, it's someone that I know in truth to be connected to, and it's core to me. That connection, that person, that sacred bond, sacred practice. Also, it's my in a way, there's a connotation of personal, but really it's my truth. It's me practicing my truth and my being. So I don't know, it's really hard to put a language definition. Usually when you say sacred, I feel it. And maybe that's the answer, that it's something I feel more than I can describe in words, but it's something that feels true and close to my heart and deeply connected to my being, like my sacred values, like really what are my truest, biggest values. But yeah, I think that would be my best stab at it, because I feel it so much more than I can sometimes verbalize.
Beautiful.
So lovely. And for anyone that is looking to connect with you more deeply, we talked about the integration journal and this other launch that's upcoming, but what is it that people can dive into with you?
Yeah, so I try to share a lot on Instagram, and being conscious of social media, that's the easiest one that's been for me to use. And there's YouTube links. I'm just at Edward Zaydelman on Instagram. I have a lot of interviews with people in this space and leaders in this space that have done stuff and made mistakes. So you could follow a lot of cool things there. All the stuff we do with the journaling is on there, and also with the new projects. And I have a website, it's zaydel.com. It has all this cool stuff too. So whenever we have a fun update, I post it there, from journaling all the way to alternative living. And that I try to keep it pretty consolidated. My girlfriend's also a branding and marketing person, so she's like, have one place where people can see everything. And I'm like, this is so challenging. She's like, and the brand is your name. And I was like, even more challenging. But it was a great exercise. But yeah, I like to have a lot of fun, and I'll post it all on there so people could join and ask questions. I'm not really that busy because of lifestyle, so I answer stuff.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ed. That was such a beautiful conversation with you.
Pleasure.
And thank you for taking the time. And we don't want to keep you away from your divine feminine. So
thank you for this work you're doing in the world. It's so important. And thank you for the leadership of this new time where the divine feminine is really the example, for the masculine and kind of old system to look at. So thank you. And thanks for having me chat about stuff. Just my experience, but it's really a lot of fun sharing with y'all and feeling your beautiful energy. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It's so beautiful to receive. Thank you for all the work that you're doing in the world as well. It's really shifting paradigms.
Let's do this. Let's create it.
Let's do it.
Beautiful. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, please. Thank you. Thank you to you both as well.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
And for our audience, thank you so much for listening. If you're still with us here, I hope this conversation has sparked some beautiful inspiration within you to really manifest that dream life of yours, and knowing that you are able to live the most beautiful way that you desire to live. And that there's also always a part of integration in order to manifest that which you desire, and that it's okay, and we all are moving through it. So let's create this beautiful new earth together. Blessed be. Namaste.